Hello and welcome to the DownShift for our second episode this week as we are grading the teams and drivers at the halfway point for this season. We've gone through the bottom six and we're now turning our attention to the top 5 teams and 10 drivers from Racing Bulls through to Mercedes as it's
lights out.
And boogity, boogity, boogity. Let's go racing.
Hello and welcome back to the DownShift. A reminder to our viewers and listeners to like and subscribe so you do not miss an episode for our riveting banter over the Formula One season.
Riveting, right. Okay.
Oh, goodness.
When's that
Is that how
getting out?
people are describing us these days?
Just throwing it out there. So
I should keep up on the socials, shouldn't I?
So for our listeners and viewers, we have reviewed the bottom 6 in regards to the teams and drivers for the halfway point in the season. Today, we turn our attention to the top 5 teams and drivers as we get our report cards out for the 5 teams who are fighting for the title. And so we have a rookie sensation and one 4-time champion whose season has been anything but straightforward. As we did for the last episode, it is 3 pros, 3 cons for every team before we hand out our grades. Every presenter will then grade the team and both drivers A+ through to F. No hiding, no mercy. So let's get into it, team.
Now, if everyone watched the last episode, you would have found that, Mr. Nice Guy Nathan
There was no mercy given by
light
some.
on the start of it. So forget that. The gloves are off. Let's get going to this. So to be fair now, we'll start with the Racing Bulls here because obviously they are sitting here in a 5th position in the Constructors' title here. So they are one of the strongest midfield teams that we've got with, generally getting regular points from both the cars. And to really no one's surprise, Arvid Lindblad has showed an impressive rookie pace and development coming into his first season for Grand Prix. And to be fair, both of them have had a solid points gain from both drivers, which Racing Bulls must be really, really happy with. And obviously, Lindblad has had a little bit of inconsistency through the season, but it is his rookie year, so you do have to give him sort of a little bit of leeway. And obviously, while they've had consistency, no one driver of that team has actually pulled away and had an absolute standout race from the two of them. So the good news is I bought my red pen back for this last 5 we've got here so we can get straight stuck into this. And KT, you're up first, mate.
All right, no worries. Well, as we get into Racing Bulls, I've got to say that this has actually been my favourite team for the season so far. Have been really impressed in regards to the performance that the team has delivered, the support for both drivers of each other. I know at the start of the season we were talking about that we were expecting Punchy to be knocking Arvid off the track, but these guys have actually gelled really well. They're working together as a team. They're delivering consistent points. We've seen them basically in front of each other through the start of this season, and they haven't come to blows. They've actually supported the performance of the team for points. So I'm really impressed with the Racing Bulls team and drivers as to how they've performed. And so for the starting grade for this team, I'm actually giving Racing Bulls a B for the halfway point of this season. Really, really well deserved. And I think, keeping an eye on them, I would argue there is the potential that they could slip into P4 depending on what actually happens for the rest of this season. In regards to the drivers, again, as much as we put it on Punchy in 2025, Liam Lawson has really delivered this year. And as we saw the challenge for going into Red Bull and very quickly getting the boot and getting put to Racing Bulls, he had a lot to deal with last year. And if you watch Drive to Survive, you'll see some of the terrible impact that he's had from just the general public, the trolls, etc., which is disgraceful. He's come back out of this, and as you can see, sitting there at 43 points. So I'm actually giving Liam Lawson a B+. And to your point, Lockie, we've seen Arvid Lindblad as the only rookie for this season performing really well, and so I'm giving Arvid a B.
All right. Well, I think I'll go next as well for this one. So I actually agree with you, KT. I think the Racing Bulls have been not a standard success, but a really great story for the year. They obviously are the sister team for Red Bull. So they're not expected to actually perform to the same standard as Red Bull, and they wouldn't want them to because they're supposed to be the trial team for them. So I'm actually going to give them a B plus overall for their scorecard for their mid-season review now. And I agree. I thought that Liam was going to absolutely cane Lindblad and push him off the track and bump into him, but they have actually provided us with some of the best wheel-to-wheel racing we've seen. And watching the two of them, it's actually more entertaining than watching some of the front markers, to be honest. So I'm actually going to give them both B pluses based on Liam doing really well and the fact that Arvid's come in for his first season. I think they've both done a really good job.
I probably share those sentiments as well. They've been a pretty solid team. They've had some good results, maybe better than expected at the start of the season with some of the other budgets from teams behind them. I'm going to give them a B as well. Liam has done genuinely well this season, and like you said, it was interesting in Drive to Survive to listen to him. But I think in particular, recently he did the High Performance podcast, I think it was, in the UK, and talked about that all the pressure and the announcements of drivers and what happened at Red Bull, and it was a very interesting episode to listen to. But yeah, I think he's done. I think he's done very well this year. I'm going to give him a B plus. Lindblad, I think for his first season, going up against Liam, who's had some experience, he knows the team. I think he's put up a really solid effort as well. So I'm going to give him a B. And I'd also say, yeah, it's been great watching these guys. They've had some ding-dong battles, and it's great because they're not fighting for the World Championship, so they're not taking each other out, but they're racing respectfully, and it's been good to watch.
Yeah, this has been a really good team to watch. Now, they've done really well, and a lot of times we've seen them just racing along side by side and quite clean and just doing what they had to do, supporting each other and also supporting Max, I think, as well as a few times. But they've sort of, they've kind of done what they've had to do there. So I was going to give them a B, but I also really like their car, the look of their car. Like their livery has, for me, for this year, has been
Best
the best
dressed.
That's half a
looking
point, is it?
car the whole season. They're getting a B plus from me as a team. So the plus can
A
go
plus
to the
for
graphic
livery.
designer guy, the livery,
Jeez.
even the wheels. I love the wheels. They're just different, and it just looks
I'm
like
with
a
you.
different. I don't know. It looks a little bit more like a toy car. And it's like, oh, it's fun to watch that, zoom around the track and do what it has to do.
Right.
And look, the drivers too, like Liam. Like I wasn't a fan of Liam's last year. He just seemed angry at everything. He had the golden ticket to get in there, and that was hard because it was to do with Christian who got him in there, and then Christian who got him out, and it was just a bit of a mess with all of that. But he showed some real maturity, I think, this year to not come back angry, but just come back and go, right, now I've got to just do what I do and get back into it. And he has. He's done really well, getting some good points, he's really solid drives. And, he's not lighting the world up, but he's just doing what he has to do for now. And this is going to set him well, I think, in the future. Whether it's, back at Red Bull or whether it's at another team or whether it's just with Racing Bulls when they get, a bit more out of their car. And then also been a probably good support for Arvid, who's come in as a rookie this year, the only rookie, probably on his lonesome this year compared to, what do we have, 7 odd rookies last year or 6, whatever it was, a massive lot of rookies. And I actually thought that he'd probably been in a bit more often than he has, but he's been really good, really consistent, kept the car on track and done really well for his first year. So Liam's getting the B plus from me, Arvid's getting the B.
Pretty consistent scoring there.
These are wild variety of scores, yeah. Wild. All right. Who's up next?
Schwag, so you get to take us on to Red Bull.
Red Bull. Rightio. Well, here we go. Red Bull. So they're currently P4 in the constructors with 177 points. Verstappen, the pros are that Verstappen has repeatedly dragged the car that's often only 4th fastest onto the podium, which is typical Verstappen style. Hadjar has been a genuine bright spot, consistent, mature points nearly every weekend, which is, he's done really well there to continually just stay in the game. Late season upgrades have shown signs of closing the gap on the front three, which is going to be much beneficial to Max to help him get that, just get a bit closer to the pointy end of things. So the cons have been a recurring rear wing failures has cost Verstappen results and nearly his safety multiple times. Still winless in 2026, the only team in the current top four without a victory. The Verstappen future saga has hung over the entire campaign as a distraction, as it always does nearly every year. There's always talk of Verstappen and his clauses and stuff, and but that's what you get for being probably the best driver in the world, really, or one of. Everyone wants to talk about you, so.
Well, he holds the key, doesn't he? If he moves or does something, then things are going to shake up in a big way.
Isn't that interesting? Fall. They talk about that and they go, where would Max go? And it's like, well, Max will go wherever he wants to go.
He holds a lot of power.
Where will everyone else go once Max goes? He's the real linchpin of the driver, do-si-do.
Yeah.
So we are going to start with KT on this one.
All right. No, so from Red Bull Racing, look, this has actually been quite a disappointment for me in regards to the top end of the field. Positives for them, we've actually seen a really, apart from some early reliability issues, the Ford Red Bull power unit has actually delivered quite well. So, and obviously from that perspective is the FIA agrees because they've rated that as the best PU on the grid. But look, from a performance perspective, we did expect to see Red Bull higher up and really contending up the top end, especially the fact that we've seen Isaac Hadjar, who has lifted the curse of the second seat, delivering consistent points and doing really well in regards to that. So for Red Bull, the team, I'm actually giving them a C for the midpoint in the season. And while you might find this surprising, I'm actually going to give Hadjar a B because I think he's done really well as the second seat in the team. But I'm actually going to give Max Verstappen a C, the perspective of just where I know he's been pulling everything out of the car. But again, I would have expected him to be up the top fighting, just given his experience, his racecraft, and what he is able to extract from a car. Again, he's been on the radio just whinging and whining in regards to it. I do get it. But really in regards to the performance and the experience of Max, shut up, drive the car, get a better result.
Ouch. What about you, Lachlan?
Wow. Get to follow that.
How do you follow that one up?
Anybody else want to go first?
Tell us what you really think.
Yeah.
He's just trying to recover from that.
Well, look, I do agree. I'm actually quite disappointed with where Red Bull is at the moment. I think for the way that team used to run in terms of its efficiency in that, I think the design gremlins or changes, whatever you want to call them, have actually hurt that team this year. And because of that, I'm actually going to give them a D. I think that they've actually shot themselves in the foot significantly. And I think as a team, they'd be disappointed. Obviously, it would have been different if Christian Horner was there, but that's a separate talk. Now, I think Hadjar has played the team role. I don't think he could play it any better. He's given Max toes when he needs to. He's blocked cars when he needs to, held up traffic when he needs to. I don't think he could have actually done any more to help the team and at the same time still get points for the Red Bull Racing team as well. So I'm giving him a B+. Max, on the other hand, best driver in the field, unfortunately been hampered by a car that, while it allegedly has the best power unit on the thing, is just not performing where he needs it to be. I'm going to give him a B+ though, because I still think that he gets more out of that car than it probably deserves.
Right. Yeah. For the team score, no doubt they've been disappointed. They've rolled out and been a fair way off the pace. Although their upgrades have been pretty good, like they seem to have made up a fair bit of ground. I think I'll give them a C. Was well below what we would expect from Red Bull based on the past decade or so of performance. My opinion of Max's performance differs somewhat from Christian's harsh scoring of the world's best driver at the moment.
I'm just being Dutch.
You didn't have to follow him with the comments, though. Like,
Anyway, sorry. Did I say that out loud? I'm giving him an A. I think Max is, regardless of what he says in the press or does, when he gets in the car, nothing else affects him. He just races his ass off, and I'm still going to give him an A. I think for that team, he's done amazingly well. He's been consistent. He's been let down by failures of the car on at least 3 occasions, I think. So if it weren't for that, he would have had more points and be dragging that team forward. Not on his own, but nearly on his own. Isaac has done a really good job. And as a rookie going up against Max Verstappen, extremely difficult thing to do. But given his support of Max and the points that he's got, I'm also going to give him a B+. I think he's earned that score. He's done a very good job, very few mistakes. So, yep.
So I reckon
Flags, it all comes
Red
down to
Bull
you.
have done quite well this season. They've been really lucky. They dodged a bullet because they could have had Adrian Newey still designing their car. And considering they've got a Ford power unit, they're managing to pull that thing through to relatively good places on the grid. So they're doing much better than they probably should. Well, seriously, I know we all joke about the Fords. We've got Fords here in Australia and their own rubbish system, et cetera, et cetera. But Ford haven't been in motorsport, like this level of motorsport, for a while.
You're
so
breaking my heart.
they're in the same category as probably, well, maybe not Audi, or maybe Audi, in terms of a new engine that's been designed for Formula One racing. So it was always going to be a hard job. So, but they've actually done pretty well with that engine. So I'm going to give the overall team, I think I'll give them a C+. I agree what you've all said about, we expected more from Red Bull, because we always do, because they have been so dominant in the past. But it's been a while since they've been that dominant, just because they probably haven't had good driver pairings to do that. This is the first season where they have had good driver pairings. Sure, Max is one of the best drivers on the grid. He's struggling with the new regulations, I think, in terms of the getting used to the way the new cars drive, as some drivers of older experience are having difficulty with that, I think. Look, Max in general, I think B+, he's doing well. Sure, he bitches a lot about the car, but he knows what he's talking about. Like, he knows exactly what's going on with that car. And when he says stuff, I think the engineers should listen and go, we think we know Max knows what he's talking about by now. Agreed, Isaac's doing well also. He's doing a great support role. He was always going to be in a hard seat, second to Max in the second seat. This has had to be his year to do well, to when the cars were probably a bit more at parity, as opposed to previous seasons where the car was being designed for Max. And, if he couldn't prove himself this year, like, he wouldn't have got much, going to the future years once the car sort of moved more into Max's form. I'm giving him a B.
Excellent. So as we move from Red Bull Racing, Happy, we move to your favourite team, McLaren.
Oh yeah, well, it was one of my favourite teams until they went to crap. Anyway, let's talk about McLaren. P3 in the Constructors' Championship. This will be a short segment. 220 points, so they have actually accumulated a half reasonable number of points. Some pros for the team. They finally opened the win column in Hungary after quite a long wait this season, although it always looked unlikely in the first half of the season they'd get a win. Oscar has had reasonably good pace as well, like they've been closely matched. And, both cars, I think, at times looked close during the first half of the season to having that sort of ultimate pace, but just weren't quite there. Some of the cons, it looks like, although they've got a high downforce car like last year, I think they would have been struggling a bit with their power deployment and getting that Mercedes engine and battery unit to work in the best way possible. We saw a little bit of some tension, I think, with some team orders in Hungary specifically, and maybe there's a bit of frustration from the drivers, and I think they both want to prove to each other that they are the fastest in that team. And some of the retirements that Piastri has had late race have certainly cost that team some points as well. So similar story up and down the grid with some reliability issues so far this season. So when we come down to scoring them, we've got Lando in P5, Oscar in P7. There's a bit of a points gap between them. Lando with 1 win in Hungary, Oscar with a P2 in Japan. Christian, you're up first for this one.
Yeah, look, and I really struggle with this one because similar to yourself, Happy, this is my number one team on the grid. Again, it's head versus heart around Oscar and Lando being given that Australian bias, and I'll just own it straight away. We've seen some issues for Oscar in regards to reliability, which have hampered him through the start of the season, and then also getting used to this car. Lando just seems to understand the new regulations a little bit better than Oscar. In fact, in regards to Andrea Stella, he's actually come out and said, I think Oscar just races a little bit too cleanly for these new regulations. So we've seen that the car has a little bit of pivot, and so therefore, obviously, with a little bit of lack of control, it just falls into Lando's favour that little bit more. For me, this has been pretty much a straight cut through both team and drivers. I'm giving McLaren overall as a team a C. And again, for both the drivers, I'm doing exactly the same. There's nothing that's been absolutely standout for me so far this season. I hope to see a lot more in the second half of the season. So it's C, 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 and C.
4 Cs, right? Okay.
You can't say
Lockie.
no.
Lockie, you're up next.
Looks like Christian's got a spare scene there, so that's all right.
You can use it if you like.
Not first up. Look, to me, McLaren's probably out of the top 4 the most disappointing. I don't think that they were quite ready or as progressed along as they would have liked to be at the start of the season. Their car certainly have had reliability problems. There's been some questionable team decisions. So for me, I'm not happy with them. I'm giving them a D. They can try hard to be better. And if I was, the school teacher telling them, I'd just say, look, I'm very disappointed. I think you need to lift your socks up and do better.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the driver pairing, on the other hand, look, there's obviously a little bit of friction between them. They are both pushing. I do, and, I don't have any Australian bias, but I do feel that those stupid Poms are giving Lando better upgrades than Oscar. But for the both part, they are still trying to push and all that. So the fact that Lando is obviously ahead of Oscar, I'm going to give him a C+, and Oscar's getting a C.
All right. On to me. Yeah, I think disappointing season for McLaren, especially given what they'd done in the past few seasons in building the processes and staff in that team, their knowledge. I'm sure they would have expected to roll out with something a bit more competitive and with the same drivetrain as the Mercedes, hopefully something near their level, but they haven't. So I'm going to give them a C+. It hasn't been the worst start in the world, but they're definitely improving, and they've showed a few glimpses of pace. Lando, I think, has driven really well, gone under the radar a little bit maybe this season with his consistency and results, but I'm going to give him a B+. I think he's done very well. Oscar. Yeah, Oscar's an interesting one.
It's tough, isn't it?
Go on, tell the truth.
I don't think his heart's in McLaren anymore. So I'm going to give him a B. I'll give him a B. He has not performed as well as Lando. He hasn't had the outright pace. He hasn't had the race results that Lando's had. So, we'll see what happens to.
You are a very generous marker.
Where he goes next year. Oh, no. Their efforts in that car, they've done well for what they have, and they've been let down by some integration problems and engine and deployment issues and some reliability. If it wasn't for that, I think they're both driving really well as drivers. Probably not at their peak at the moment because they can't show it, but I think a B and a B+ is fine.
For those not paying attention, I think that was a really insightful comment in regards to where Oscar's heart is.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's going to have different colours on it soon. Yeah.
So I don't have an orange heart anymore. Correct.
I agree with Nathan. For the team last year that was absolutely nailing it from start to finish the whole season through, they've just fumbled here with and I know it's the Mercedes engine, but they had the Mercedes engine before. They've just fumbled with getting into this season and understanding the regs and getting the car that was going to be fast. So I think as a team, they've really, for a team that was on the up and up, they would have had, a whole lot of sponsors and people banging down their doors to support them and build them up and make them better. And they've sort of blown it, really, I think. So I'm happy to give them a D. I think as a team, they've just, and, you can blame the non-integrated power unit because you're using someone else's power unit and you didn't know from the scratch, but from the start what it was going to be like, et cetera, et cetera. But they've all had the engines for whiles and they've all got smart people around them knowing what to do. So then on to the drivers. So let's start with Lando. He's doing okay, again, for a top driver from last year who, in theory, knew his stuff and knew how to drive the car and all the tracks, et cetera, et cetera. He's probably been a bit disappointing this year. But again, that comes down to the car, right? He hasn't got the quickest car on the circuit this year, and it shows. So I think he's doing okay in the car that he's got. Yeah, probably happy to give him a C+, I think, on that. And Oscar. So once upon a time, I used to borrow it for Richmond. If you're in Victoria, you might understand what that means. And I did because they were winning. And when they're winning, it's easy to support someone. No, not necessary. People can fumble around and find it for themselves. And it was a bit like that with Oscar. Like, it was easy to support Oscar as an Aussie and as, a blistering driver through the whole half of the first season last year. He was just electric to watch. He was fun to watch. He was racing well. He was just shaving milliseconds off everyone. It was just great. And he's not anymore. And that's the car. It's the change of regs. I think he's admitted that he's probably having some issues adapting to the new style of driving, which surprises me as a young driver. I thought a lot of the younger drivers would maybe take it a bit easier. I'm probably giving Oscar a C as well. And I tend to agree with Lachlan on the English bias for Lando, and also with Nathan on the orange heart of Oscar. It's just, he's going to have a bit of soul searching to do in the coming months about what his future looks like. And I dearly hope that he doesn't end up, like Daniel Ricciardo, just swept to the side because
lost somewhere.
Yeah, and just getting stuck with
trying
some
to
bad
stay relevant on social media.
Yeah, but look, I think that's always, we're up against it because he's an Australian driver. He hasn't got the backing of the English or the European market, so that's always going to be an absolutely hard slog for an Aussie driver, no matter how good he is, to be the golden child of the sport. So I just hope that he can, improve in the second half of the season and get back on track with what he used to do.
And that leaves us with the last two teams, the two big hitters of the season, I would have to say. So we have...
We're going to your team, Schwags.
We have Ferrari, the team in red.
Now we're getting to some real stories. There's some really interesting stuff to talk about here. Finally. Rightio. So, genuine title mix pace. 2 wins across the last 4 rounds. Leclerc has been the more consistent, making mistake-free of the pair all season. That's an interesting comment, considering Lewis has done 100% of all laps and everything. But anyway, and they've closed the constructors' gap to Mercedes quite meaningfully since Silverstone. The cons are Hamilton's first Ferrari season has been penalty-prone and chaotic on race day. He has really been a bit of a klutz in that respect, hasn't he? The strategy calls under pressure have been typically Ferrari, have cost points more than once. There's still 72 points adrift of Mercedes in the constructors' fight, so have their work cut out for them in the second half of this season if they're going to challenge Mercedes at the top end of town. Leclerc's got 138 points, finished P1 in Silverstone, and Hamilton's on 169 points, finishing P1 in Barcelona. So, KT, what's your generous score for these guys?
Look, and it's funny as I listened to your intro in regards to the team and Ferrari strategy and Ferrari really don't go well together, and we've seen that at times. They've been good and then they've been terrible, which is normal for Ferrari as we've gone through the season. Also, from the fact that we've seen with Lewis Hamilton, we've seen a brand new Lewis again this season, where we go to the middle of last season where Lewis was literally saying, replace me as a driver, to the fact that I honestly thought that we would not be seeing Lewis for much longer in an F1 car. He's turned this around. It's been a complete 180-degree turn, and we're seeing the result of that as he's only 50 points behind Kimi Antonelli in regards to the race lead. So I'm really excited to see what Lewis is going to bring to the second half of this season, given his experience versus Kimi Antonelli's youth and exuberance. It could make a real difference in regards to the racing that we do see. I'm actually, from Ferrari's perspective, the strategy faux pas versus some of the strategy lucky calls. I'm actually going to rate Ferrari as a B+ for the first half of this season. I think they've done well as a team, short of a couple of slight mishaps. As I then turn my attention to the drivers, and look, Charles just hasn't performed as well as I expected him to perform this season so far. You're right, Schwags, there has been a level of consistency, but Lewis has been more consistent. And, so we sort of look at the head-to-head, Lewis has had pace just that little bit more in regards to Charles. So I'm going to put Charles a B. And Lewis, again, I'm just really excited to be seeing a rejuvenated Lewis Hamilton, to see him loving racing again, to see him back in his groove. And I'm actually going to give Lewis an A for the first half of this season. So I'll throw that over then to you, Lockie.
Yeah, look, I feel that you're pretty much spot on with your comments there. I was excited to actually see Ferrari get their crap together at the start of this year and actually put a reasonable car on the track. I was all set to, think, my mid-season point, they're going to get an A for this. This is great, until you look at some of their calls that they've done. So as a team, I think, they've had their up and downs with some calls and decisions they've made. So I am going to give them a B+ though. I do feel that they are worthy of that. They have actually really got their stuff together this year. The drivers, I agree with your comments on that as well. I think Chuck just hasn't performed to his expectations as well. So I will give him a B as well. Now, Lewis Hamilton, I thought, he's back to the Lewis of old. He's focused, he's driven. It's all ready to give him an A. And then he goes and speeds through pit lane and does some other stupid stuff. So unfortunately, the red pen had to come out and he gets knocked down to a B+.
Fair call.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough. On to me, yes, Ferrari. I think have done a pretty good job this year as far as reliability goes. When you compare them to some of the other teams, I'm going to give them a B+. They can do a little bit better, but they've had a strong start. Leclerc and Hamilton, I pretty much agree with your sentiments, guys. I think, Leclerc's been decent. Probably could have been a little bit better. But I'm going to give Leclerc a B+ and Hamilton an A. I think they've done a very good job with that Ferrari, and as a team, they've been very consistent in scoring points, more consistent than Mercedes. They've had less engine dramas, gearbox problems, etc. They've had the odd one, but I think as a team, they've been more reliable and consistent. They may not have had the outright pace, but it makes me excited to see what they'll be like for the back half of the year, for sure.
If you had have asked me at the start of the season, they would have got a C. They seem to roll out a bit average, but they've built through this first quarter of the season. They've come good, and they look like they were making some better strategy calls early on. Suffice to say, they still throw in a couple of dodgy ones here and there just to keep us on our toes. I also agree. I think a B+ for Ferrari. They've got the ability to get this championship, I think, but they've got to get a lot right. They can't afford any miscellaneous bad decisions or bad development or anything else. So I think they're doing pretty well. in terms of Charles, again, Charles started the season pretty strong, and I was a bit concerned because Lewis wasn't really, he had his gripes from last season. He was really, really in a bad place at the end of last year. And it looked like he was in a better place at the start of the season, but he didn't quite get the results early in the season compared to Charles. Charles seemed to have his number early, but Lewis is kind of
rumours were
now.
after he got his brake change from Brembo to Carbon Industries,
that was a big thing,
around.
And I think that's a really positive thing for Ferrari, Lewis, and then probably Leclerc to have had for Lewis to have the conviction to go, you know what, I need to do something different, or this is what I'm missing. And they actually listened to him, which is a bit surprising for a Ferrari, but it worked out for him. Anyway, so Charles, look, I'm giving Charles a B. He's doing okay. He's probably struggling a bit, but they're both pretty close together in terms of, race pace and everything else. So, and they've had some good racing between them as well. Now, I was going to be totally unbiased and give Lewis Hamilton an A+ for no particular reason at all. But what I found myself thinking is, I thought, well, that's not right. So I have to actually, I got a couple of things here. I have to mark him down for being a muppet when it comes to his infringements. I mean, God, Lewis, you've been doing this for a while now. And I know it's only, you just, got out of pit lane a bit too early before the line and you're 0.1 of a kilometre over the speed limit. But you're not a rookie anymore, mate. You've got to get this shit right. I'm taking off another half a point for him going out with Kim Kardashian. But on the positive side is
I love the way your brain works.
I'm giving him a bonus half a point because he's just got a golden retriever named Halo to replace Roscoe. So he gets gives him up to an A.
That's an A.
Yeah, back to an A.
Hang on.
The golden retriever got him up to an A. And Kim Kardashian.
Yeah. Plus, minus. Minus, plus.
Minus, plus.
But
Yeah.
totally
The Kardashian should have been a full point downgrade, not a half point.
Well, potato. Yeah,
and we all forgot that he ran over his one of his engineers as well.
But Ferrari engineers are disposable.
That wasn't his fault, though. They said go, so, yeah.
That's a lesson for Ferrari engineers. If you make bad strategy calls, you're going to get run over by Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, that's it.
It's a very, very consistent scoring for that one. And that leads us on to
Mercedes, the championship leaders. So, look, the Mercedes has been the dominant car of 2026. Obviously, as a manufacturer, they are providing the PU not only for them, but for 4 other teams. And so, they've got a 72-point lead in the Constructors' Championship. Antonelli has been the absolute standout story of the season, leading the Drivers' Championship by 50 points over Lewis Hamilton. Look, we look at this, both George Russell and Charles Leclerc, there was the thought that this was either of their season. And so Kimi Antonelli coming through as a rookie into his second year has absolutely dominated the field and delivered stellar performances throughout, short of a couple of performance issues. 6 race wins for his second full season. From the con perspective, Russell, as I was saying, this was meant to be his season. He's been undone by some reliability and offline dramas, the anti-stalls and deployment issues. There is now a 59-point gap between the 2 teammates. And look, really, as you were saying, Schwags, there is little margin for complacency with Ferrari if they continue to build their momentum. Obviously, Ferrari's been investing quite heavily in regards to upgrades for the first half of the season, and as to whether or not that sort of winds back a little bit as they reach the spending cap. But really, this is the fight to watch between Mercedes and Ferrari. So as we kick in, Schwags will throw to you in regards to what your grading is for Mercedes for the first half of the season.
Well, they've had a really good start to the season. They were probably the constructor that got it right. I think the whole change of regs, the development, the setup. I know you said that was, Kimi or George's time this year, but it was never Kimi's time. It was always supposed to be George's year. Yeah, the Mercedes have just had it dialed in from the start. Kudos to Toto and his team because they just nailed it. They got a fast car. They've got a well-performing car. A few reliability issues here and there. It's going to be interesting, I think, to see what happens to them in the second half of the year. I think there's some talk about them having to take some engines and penalties in the second half.
Mhm.
We're not grading them on that just yet. At the moment, I'm going to give them an A. I probably should be giving them an A plus because they are the top of they've just done it well. But it's just some reliability that they're not quite onto yet. I'll start with George. Poor George. Like, I mean, he's I don't know. I think he's sort of expectation versus reality is going to be a real bit of a shell shock for him this year. It's a shame because it apparently was his time, and you know he has been a good number 2 driver in previous years, and this was his chance to shine. Having said that, he's still driving pretty well, although he's probably been a bit lucky when he gets into the top 5 or 4 on the grid. Like luck's got to go his way to make that happen, and you can't wait for luck to happen to get that. I'm giving George a B plus. Kimi has just been a rocket. He was good at the end of last season. He just didn't probably have the maturity the head on his shoulders to, keep it in check. And he's really doing well this season. Again, he's probably an A plus driver, except for his track limits. God, Kimi, stay inside the track. So I'm giving Kimi an A. He's just a phenomenal, and they talk about him being a generational talent, and look, he's very lucky in that he's in the car that's going to allow that to show through. So we are next to Lockie, I think.
Sure, I'll jump in. I agree. I think Mercedes has been the outfit that actually got it right this season, which it's fantastic to watch. They all screwed it together well. Obviously, the only blemish we could say is the fact that they're supplying the engines and the power units and they're failing. So you can't get an A plus based on that. So I do have to mark it down to an A for that. George, look, congratulations on getting engaged. Well done. At least you've got a high point for the off sprint you can have for that one.
Does that give me an extra half a point?
I haven't got to that yet. But look, to be fair, it's, George has been his own worst enemy sometimes. He's had a couple of things that haven't gone his way with power units and things like that just haven't worked in his favour. But we all, 3 out of 4 of us tipped George to actually win the championship this year. Clearly we got that wrong. But, in all fairness to him, he's still driving well. But unfortunately, he's just been shown up by the younger driver. So I'm giving George a B+. Now, Kimi, what can you say? Well done. Congratulations. You have absolutely smoked everybody at the moment. I'm not as concerned with the track limits as what KT is. So you're getting an A+ from me.
Oh, that was me anyway.
Damn, whatever.
We both look the same.
Track limits, schmack limits, who cares? Just a suggestion.
All right, Happy, over to you.
Yep, similar thoughts. A few reliability issues, but obviously they've got the regs right and rolled out a rocket from day one, although the other guys are catching up. So I will give them an A. Now, as far as Georgie goes, I think this was his potential season for a win of the championship. He was playing second fiddle to Hamilton. And I think he was really hoping to still be the better of Kimi in this little driver pairing. But Kimi is just evolving so quickly as a driver, making fewer mistakes. He's naturally fast. So I think unless George puts some good karma into the world and stops complaining so much, you make your own luck. He's not going to go well this season. So I'm going to give him a B. I think he's underperforming. He's got more capability than what he's shown. But maybe it's the pressure that's getting to him. Kimi, on the other hand, look, he's becoming a very complete little driver, even at a young age. It's been pretty good to watch. Track limits, he's got a few things he needs to work on. But I think his mental capacity and his calmness when he's behind the wheel and how he has just been executing without making the mistakes that he did last year. I'm going to give him an A. I think he's been driving really well. He's one of the top 2 drivers on the grid at the moment, probably the best.
Nath, just quickly there, do you think George's heart still runs silver?
Maybe George thinks it does. I don't know if Toto does anymore. We'll see.
Interesting. Mm-hmm.
We'll see. But I look, it'd be tough if George got pushed out somewhere else. But I think if he stays in Mercedes, he'll be the number 2 driver because he knows Mercedes are going to put everything into Kimi.
Again,
Right.
the number 2 driver.
They'll give him one more season at least. He'll be all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and look, I think that's really as we move on to my thoughts around it is with George is he was the number 2 driver, was performing really well against Lewis, and so we all saw that this was his opportunity, and we saw him take Kimi under his wing last year, helping him develop as a young rookie coming into the team and doing everything he could there. Again, to your point, his heart does still run silver. But the challenge is as to whether or not if someone else with a better pedigree comes along, as to whether or not he'll be shifted quite quickly in regards to that and all that to see. From the Mercedes perspective is, yes, they've delivered, to your point, Huppy, an absolute rocket. They've had obviously the most time to prepare for this in regards to the regulations. They've delivered an exceptional PU, which, even Toto at the last race has said they are the strongest PU on the grid, which goes against the FIA's determination that Red Bull has got the best PU on the grid. But yeah, so from that perspective is Mercedes have really delivered under these new regulations. And so again, I'm also giving them an A as a team for what they've been able to deliver so far. And obviously not going to an A+ because of a few reliability issues and the like. As we look at the drivers, look from this perspective is George hasn't been lucky in regards to the start of the season. We've seen that he's had a couple of reliability issues, which I really would have loved to see him and Kimi being able to go head-to-head, especially at Canada. That would have been great to see them be able to complete the full race. But look, yeah, George just needs to lift his game. And hopefully with the summer break and to Lockie's point around his engagement to Carmen, we might see a new and invigorated George Russell for the second half of the season. But I'm going to give George Russell a B+ for the first half of the season.
Apparently, the engagement ring was $44,000. So his wallet's a bit lighter. So if that takes a bit of weight out of the car, then
Only $44,000.
He might get a couple of hundreds a lap or something. It could help him out.
Well, he's not
Only
sure about
44.
his employment.
Only?
He's not sure about his
He's got to save a rainy day.
So you made of money. Wow.
If I've got the salary of an F1 driver, 44 seems cheap. But anyway, but no, look, moving on to Kimi Antonelli. I mean, look, just an exceptional talent. If I reflect back on our predictions at the start of the year, yes, three of us had George Russell finishing in P1. For all of us, we had Kimi Antonelli finishing P5. Sorry, what am I looking at? P5, P6, P7. Sorry. So, from that regards is for the expectation of all of us and for a lot of the pundits out there as well. We weren't expecting to see this meteoric rise of Kimi Antonelli, and Kimi has just been, apart from a couple of issues and to your point around track limits, exceptional. He is a generational talent, which, obviously Toto had been touting and everyone's gone, yeah, we'll wait to see how that happens. But to your point, Huppy, he just seems unflappable. He comes into the race weekend completely relaxed and calm. He moves on from a mistake and just puts it behind him. And just moves on. And as we can see, he's now leading the championship by 50 points over Lewis and 59 points over his teammates. So look, for Antonelli, I'm going to give him an A+ for the first half of the season. I think he's done exceptionally well.
Just to help you out, Nathan, too, I've done a quick calculation, and the average for Mercedes is A for the team.
Okay, yeah. It took me a minute to work that out. Yeah.
I tell you.
Well, it just saves AI helping you out there. I've done it for you, okay? So, yeah.
All right. So do we want to look at our mid-season score chart?
Do we ever?
All right.
Is it one of those, those animated graphs again that you like to do so much?
I'm not winning this one.
Only if he's in front. That's the way that works. So.
Yeah. So
This is really interesting.
Well, look, I think the team rankings are probably what I expected, and I think drivers as well, to be honest. When I think about performances during the year and who's sort of doing a good job, I think especially that top 5 or 6. But yeah, I think that's about right.
McLaren and Red Bull are the surprises for me. They're quite a way down in our list, but once we've talked about it, I kind of probably think that's about right too.
Well, from what you would expect from those teams, especially from the last number of seasons, I think they're underperforming. Yeah.
I mean, we gave McLaren a spanking for their and a D+, like absolutely spanking.
Well, just like Lando does with his tyre warmer guy.
Yes.
I think Hamilton's a legitimate number 2 in the field at the moment with the way he's been driving and performing.
Mm-hmm. Agree.
I think that looks okay. I would have thought Charles might be a little bit higher than a B, but some of you guys are pretty tough with your markings. But yeah, I think that's generally pretty good.
Misdemeanors
I believe the word you're looking for is fair, not tough. Fair.
But also seeing Liam Lawson up there as well. I mean, this really speaks to the change as we were talking about earlier. And I think Schwags, you were saying that he was just such an angry driver last year, and he's really turned himself around in regards to his approach to racing.
I think the angry driver just stays with the number 2 driver in the Red Bull seat, because we've seen that with Hadjar early in the season.
Yeah.
So that's it for the mid-season report card so far.
So look, for our listeners and viewers, would really love you to be able to jump online and look, put some comments in whatever platform
Are we right? Are we wrong?
Watch us. Yep. Do you agree? Do you disagree?
How wrong is Christian exactly? Let us know.
Well, but based on our assessment at the start of the year of Antonelli, we all had him 5, 6, 7. Obviously, our expert pundit, we can do no wrong, so we're pretty good. Yep.
But no, look, we'd really love to get your thoughts and your views in regards to it, because this is really subjective and open to understanding what you see as the performance of particular drivers, teams, or what has delivered in regards to that. So, yeah, share your thoughts, share your views, and tell us how wrong we are.
Nicely.
Nicely.
I know how you feel.
Yeah, no, we're a little bit gentler as opposed to what we were with the teams and drivers. But no, look, in regards to that, obviously Mercedes and Antonelli are sitting at the top of the class. Red Bull's incomplete without a win for the season so far. But Max Verstappen continues to try and drag it up the ladder. So look, as we wrap up this episode, next episode will be next week, which will be the preview of the Dutch Grand Prix at Zandvoort. So make sure you tune in for that as we see all the drivers and teams return from the summer break. So we will review the news from the paddock and beyond, as I have a very sad wife here at home, as George Russell has posted his engagement to Carmen Munt. And also we will hope that Max Verstappen puts to bed all the rumours on his next move. Going to say something there.
Can't wait.
But until then, we will see you all on the next lap.